Win or lose, Wisconsin loves the Green Bay Packers, and most people can name a favorite player or a memorable player or two.
That's right, but our next guest can remember a lot of them. Joining us now is sportscaster, writer, and host of Drew and KB. It's Drew Olson. He co-wrote this book with his buddy Jason Wilde. It's called The Big 50, The Men and Moments That Make the Green Bay Packers. And we are happy to welcome him for the first time to the Yellow Couch.
I'm glad to be here. It's a thrill, but I'm sorry that I missed the OMG Bloody Marys by 24 hours.
Yeah.
So have me back on a Sunday, and we'll do this up right.
Exactly.
Right.
Sorry, only Sunday Bloodies with us.
Yeah,
that's true. So this is pretty awesome. This book, The 50 Moments. How do you even begin to think it's just going to be 50 that made the men and the moments of the Green Bay Packers?
It's a great question because the NFL is in its 100th season this year, and our book is The Big 50. So our timing's a little bit off. And the hardest thing was the Packers have such a rich history that narrowing it down to 50 was probably the toughest part of the book.
I would think so. We teased that a hot dog changed the course of the game for the Packers. Can you sum up that story, how a hot dog could do that?
Think of the millions of hot dogs and sausages consumed at Lambeau Field over the years, right? And this one in 1980, Ezra Johnson, the Packers' best defensive player of the time, in their last exhibition game, coming off a horrible season in 1979 and a terrible exhibition season in 1980, in the last exhibition game in the second half, right before the season was supposed to start, he took a hot dog from a fan and ate it on the sidelines in uniform.
He took it from a fan?
Yes. He said he was hungry. And this
They're like, here you go.
Yes, and he ate it and he got caught, and it became a huge scandal. In the days before social media, there were still a lot of scandals.
Right.
And this one especially, a lot of people wanted him released. They thought it was flagrant disregard and disrespect.
For the game.
For the game, and they were in a bad place. Their number one draft pick from the previous draft had gone to Canada, Bruce Clark. He was a defensive player. They were losing 38-0 in the game, and he ate a hot dog during the game. So there was a scandal. People wanted him released. He was their best defensive player. They wanted him fined or suspended. His position coach quit because they didn't suspend him. It was Bart Starrs was the head coach at the time. And it was a huge scandal at the time, and it was kind of the beginning of the end of that era, of a dark era for the Packers.
Wow.
They had many dark eras, but this was the most famous hot dog in history.
Never heard about that.
Yeah, no, and now again, that's a good one to narrow down.
It's chapter 44 of the book.
The first chapter is about Super Bowl 45.
That's right.
And why do you start with that? What was so great?
Well, we wanted to be current because there's a lot of history in this book. And the way we divided it up, Jason Wilde is one of my best friends, and he's been covering the team. He's a fantastic writer. And when I was going to do this book by myself, and I ended up calling Jason and saying, hey, when did you write that story with Aaron Rodgers? It was really cool. And hey, can I find that quote? And then finally I just said, Jason, why don't you write half the book with me? Why don't you take half the workload?
So you don't have to just keep crediting him. You can just put his name on
I was bugging him. I was calling him all the time. So it just said, just write the book with me. It's a little bit like saying, hey, can you come over to my house on Saturday? And then, oh, you're going to help me move a piano. Right? That's what it's like.
We've all done that.
Jason, bless his heart, he chipped in and did. So basically everything that he's covered in the last 20 years, he had intimate knowledge of, and he wrote that chapter. And we were both at that Super Bowl, and he captured that. And we wanted to start with Aaron Rodgers, and we wanted to, kind of get people current before we went back. Now, I did a lot of the research, the historical things like hot dogs and Curly Lambeau and things like that.
The important stuff like hot dogs.
Yes.
Interesting. So you start, a lot of people will start, Bart Starr even, and then go to Brett Favre. I think it's interesting. You started, Super Bowl 45 was in 2011. The Packers beat the Steelers.
That's right.
Right, in Texas. I was thinking the other day yesterday watching football, I'm a Bears fan, but I've always had kind of an affection for the Packers because I've lived here forever. But I was thinking, it's amazing they had two back-to-back Hall of Fame quarterbacks, incredible quarterbacks. And I always think when Rodgers' time is over, can the Packers possibly find another quarterback that's that caliber?
We're incredibly spoiled in this market to have that long a stretch with Hall of Fame quarterback play, and not everybody in the NFL gets to experience that. And you're right, they might stumble through the wilderness after he leaves, and that's kind of why I think they're worried about the noise at Lambeau Field and the fans not being as charged up anymore. Because we're a little bit spoiled, we're a little entitled. Used to having good play.
Do you have other favorite chapters in the book?
There are a bunch. One of the things I realized when I researched this book is that the Packers, we see them now as this great business. And you go to the atrium and you go to game day and you see everything that's booming around Titletown. It wasn't always like that. Until the Lombardi years, every year they were on the brink of being bankrupt and moving. And the fact that they survived in Green Bay, and we take it for granted, but it's like one of the best stories in sports history. That's that they've survived and flourished in this market, in this huge billion-dollar industry. Tiny Green Bay has a team. It's remarkable.
It's pretty cool. I hadn't thought about that sort of. I mean, clearly I've been to Lambeau, and the history and the beauty of the arena is just like incredible. But I hadn't thought about how important it is that it's in Green Bay.
And if it wasn't for Molly's Bears, they might not exist. because when they went to Chicago, people grasped on early on in the NFL. It's a big part of the league story that people grasped onto this little tiny team. It was like, it was David and Goliath all the time.
Yeah, we're little underdogs.
And the Bears, George Halas, he loved them because they always drew well when they played the Packers. And so the Bears really helped the Packers stay afloat through tough times.
We ran out of time, but I wanted to mention it's been interesting seeing a lot more of Brett Favre lately. Yesterday at the game, it was cute to see Bart Starr's wife Cherry with Favre, and then you saw Aaron Rodgers greet her too before the game. But it's been kind of a resurgence of seeing Brett and hearing his perspective.
Yes. That divorce is a big chapter, and Jason covered that on the front lines of it, and then we just forget. That was almost pre-Twitter and social. Social media wasn't quite what it was then, and it's remarkable. There were scandals before Twitter and Facebook.
Where do people get your book?
Amazon, Barnes & Noble, everywhere books are sold. Everywhere discerning people buy books.
Thanks, Drew.
Great
to have you here.
Thank you so much. And it's the Big 50 men and moments who made the Green Bay Packers. That's great. Right. Thanks again.
All right.